What's up, guys? It has been a while since I last put a video out, and I apologize for that, but the reason for that has really been out of my control. As many of you know, right now Yellowstone National Park is experiencing mass flooding, the worst flooding in the park's history, and I am here living in the park as it happens right now, and it's been a pretty insane experience. I mean, the park is totally empty. The only people left in the park are employees, and honestly it's been a super odd and surreal experience to see the park like this. I mean, right now, as you can see around me, I'm sitting in Canyon Campground, which is one of the biggest campgrounds in the park. Usually this time of year, mid-June, it's, you know, packed to the brim. There are tons of people here, but I'm sitting here and there's not a soul in this whole campground besides me, which is just really odd. And it's the same case if you go out and drive the park roads, you know, just driving around. It's just you and no one else. And typically in summer in Yellowstone, there are traffic jams all over the park and tons of people, and it's insanity. But right now there's no one here, just us. And it's eerily quiet and quite the surreal experience to see the park like this. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of give a quick update on what's going on with me and kind of my experience throughout this whole flooding thing as an employee that's, you know, been in the park throughout the entire thing. We haven't left the park. Actually, we haven't been allowed to leave the park. We've been trapped here in Yellowstone. And I just wanted to give an update and kind of talk about my experience through this whole thing because a lot of you guys have been asking about it. So going back to, I guess, around Sunday, like June 12th, you know, that was when all this really kind of began. It was maybe like the third-ish day at that time. I think it had been about 3 days that we had been experiencing mass rains, and at the same time, you know, spring came late this year in Yellowstone. We got a lot of snow in April and May, so all that snow melt is just now happening in mid-June. So we're getting peak snow melt and like 3 days of non-stop rain at the same time. So anyways, I go to bed, wake up the next day, go to work on June 13th, like it's a normal day at work, and it's actually really odd because June 13th is the day that all this flooding happened, and it's also a month before that. May 13th is the day that I got robbed on the way out here. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link the video right up here. Basically, I was on my way out here to Yellowstone and I got robbed. It was a whole thing, so you can check that out linked up here if you're interested. But yeah, so a month exactly to the day later is when this next big catastrophe of the trip has happened, which I just thought was odd. But anyways, I come in on the 13th, and almost immediately we get 2 power outages in the morning. Kind of goes out for like 10 minutes, comes back on, goes back out again at work. It happens sometimes. Typically when it's storming it happens, so you know, we kind of expected it. But then we start to hear these whispers of, like, you know, the road to Gardiner, the northeast entrance, or sorry, the north entrance is covered in water, and you can't get out there. We're starting to hear these whispers from, you know, other employees, people coming in the store, visitors, stuff like that. And then I would say around, you know, 11 o'clock or so, we had a ranger come into the store, and basically he announced to the store that Yellowstone National Park is closed to all inbound traffic. People are allowed to leave if you're in the park, but you can't get back in. And you can stay in the park if you're in the park, but again, if you leave the park, you're not getting back in. All inbound traffic is now closed in Yellowstone. And at this point, I'm kind of thinking, you know, something serious must be going on because, you know, they don't just close Yellowstone National Park on a whim. So anyways, I ended up seeing a photo of the road to Gardiner, and part of it was broken in, but it didn't look that bad. It was just like half of one of the lanes, and it was something that they easily could have fixed. And I thought, well, you know, maybe they're just taking precautions and whatever, based on this photo. But nothing looked too bad. Then about maybe 2 hours later, we get another announcement from Park Service, and this time they're telling us that the entire park is closed and all visitors are being evacuated now. And at this point, I know something big has to be going on. So within probably 10 minutes, we had emptied out our store, closed the store around 2:30. I go downstairs, go back to the dorms, and I get on Instagram, and that's when I began to see these videos. And at this point, once I saw these videos, it began to make sense why they had closed the whole park down. This was the worst catastrophe the park had faced since the 1988 fires. I mean, this is just insanity. Nothing like this has ever been seen in Yellowstone. And I knew at this point also that, they were evacuating all visitors and closing all the entrances, and I knew the roads were soon to follow. So before they closed the roads, I made a quick run down to the North Rim Drive. I'm right here at Canyon, so it's like 2 minutes away, and I wanted to get a look at the falls with this historic, flow on the river. This was the highest the Yellowstone River had ever been in recorded history. So what you're seeing right now is a truly historic view of the falls that I got on Monday right before they closed the roads, because then I got back to the dorms maybe 10 minutes later. As soon as I got back, they closed all park roads, and we were trapped in Yellowstone until farther notice. We didn't really know what was going to happen at this point. They had evacuated all the guests and it was just employees left, and we basically just knew that we had to stay at our dorms per park service. We weren't allowed to go out in the park at all. We weren't allowed to drive, stay at the dorms, and just wait and see what happened, basically. At this point, we weren't even sure if the park was going to reopen, if we were going to get to keep our jobs and keep working. For all we knew, we were going to be evacuated as well within the next few days, and we were going to lose our jobs, and there was really no telling what was going to happen. And this whole closure and us being restricted to our dorms went on for a few days. On day 2, we lost power because of all this flooding. And on top of that, that same day, a big snowstorm hit. So we were very cold and basically just had to bundle up and hope that power came back on soon, because it was like 30-something degrees out, pouring snow. Yes, it's mid-June and it still snows in Yellowstone. That's why they say pack for all 4 seasons when you come here, because it does still snow in summer. And so we're just in the dorms with no power, no heat, and hoping the power comes back on. Now thankfully we were able to eat hot meals during all of this, because the employee kitchen and dining room is run off of gas, so we were able to at least get some hot meals. But besides that, we really had nothing to look forward to in the day. We just had to sit in the dorms and hope the heat came back on soon. And thankfully, it was only a day without power, and then it came back on. And every day as this went on, we kind of got status updates from Park Service around dinner time usually, on what things were looking like and when the park might reopen. At first they were saying it would reopen by, like Sunday, and now it's looking like maybe Wednesday based on the latest updates, but we're really not totally sure yet. It depends on all the conditions throughout the park. But we were trapped in the dorms for a few days, and then finally the Park Service announced that as employees we are allowed to drive around the park, we're allowed to exit the park and come back into the park, but we are not allowed to recreate in the park at all. We're not allowed to go out and hike, we can't stop along the way, we just have to drive to and from entrances, and that's it. And so since they are allowing us to drive through the park now, I have been out on a drive a few times, and it's honestly really cool to be able to go out and drive, and it literally just be you on the road and maybe a couple other employees you pass. Even though it's like peak season almost here in Yellowstone, it's literally just us and the wildlife out there. It's honestly pretty cool to drive around and see that, but like I said, we can't stop and do anything. I'm not allowed to get out and take photos of any of the wildlife I see, and we can't hike or anything. So even though we kind of have the park all to ourselves, we don't have the park all to ourselves at all, because we're not allowed to go anywhere. And honestly, since the flooding started, you would think that it would have been like some crazy thing to be an employee in the park. It's not been at all. It's been very uneventful and boring for the most part, because we've just been stuck to the dorms. And in my area here at Canyon, we're pretty safe from flooding. We're the highest elevation of any of like the main base villages in Yellowstone. So we have no flooding issues here. We've basically just been stuck here and seeing videos and photos of the flooding elsewhere. So we've been safe, but it's just been very boring and uneventful so far. And yeah, I think that basically brings us to right now, where I'm sitting here filming this video. We are allowed to walk around Canyon and stuff, which is why I was able to come over here to the campground and film. But like I said, we're still not able to go out and recreate at all or do anything like that. So I'm gonna leave the park and upload this video on West today, but that's about all that I can do. And that brings us to now. That is the experience so far as a Yellowstone employee in the park during the flooding. It hasn't been very exciting, to be honest with you. It's been pretty boring and a little bit scary to see that we may lose our jobs and they may shut down the whole park. Thankfully that's not going to be the case, it looks like. With the current state of things, we're going to be reopening the park pretty soon, but we were definitely worried about that for a short time. So yeah, that is the current update, and just to update a little bit more on the future and videos coming out in the future. With the current state of things, it doesn't look like the North Loop is going to open at all this year. I mean, in many places the road is literally gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So it looks like Lamar Valley and all that area is going to be shut down all year, which is a real bummer, because that is the most wildlife rich area of the park and the area of the park that is the best for wildlife photography. But it's going to be shut down all year. So as far as me making wildlife photography vlogs out here, they're probably going to slow down and be a little bit fewer and further between, because so much of the park that I had planned on accessing and so much of the wildlife up in Lamar that I had planned on photographing and making videos on, I'm not going to be able to access at all the rest of this season, which really sucks. But you know, I'm going to make do with what I have. We still have the whole southern loop of the park, and we're going to have that for the rest of the season still, as long as no more mass flooding comes. So I'm going to make videos on that, but like I said, the videos will likely be fewer and further between, because so much of the content that I had planned was based in the northern range. I had already planned out tons of videos I was going to make up there, and I'm not going to be able to make those videos now. And you know, the same thing kind of applies with this fall. You guys know that I had this plan where I was going to go to Montana State University. I'm still going to be going there, but I was going to go there, and every weekend I was going to be able to come into the entrance in Gardiner, just an hour away from Bozeman, and spend my weekends in the park and make videos in the park every weekend. It's not going to be the case now, because the entrance to Gardiner is probably not going to be open at the minimum until this winter. So it's really unfortunate, guys. It's really screwed up a lot of my plans, and obviously, you know, for the gateway towns, this has screwed up so many people's incomes. You know, so many people have lost their livelihoods in Gardiner because, you know, they rely on Yellowstone tourism, and they're not going to get that now because that entrance is closed. So it's really been a terrible event, and it's definitely screwed up a lot of people's livelihoods, and it screwed up all of my plans for, you know, this summer and fall. But we're gonna make do with what we can. I can still enter through West Yellowstone this fall. It's just a little bit longer of a drive, and I can still make videos in the southern portion of the park and in Grand Teton National Park. However, on the bright side, I do have 2 whole wildlife photography vlogs that I filmed before all the flooding began in the park, and they're honestly 2 of my favorite videos that I've ever made. So you do have those to look forward to in the meantime. Until then though, that's a quick update on how things are going, and that's my story on, you know, my experience as an employee that's been stuck here in Yellowstone during these floods. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.